Greetings everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm your host Captain Rye, and today's video comes to us courtesy of Stormsurge Alpha. And Stormsurge is playing in the Tier 9 Pan-Asia destroyer, the Chungmu, here in World of Warships, which is basically just the Pan-Asia Fletcher. As the battle gets underway, it's Sea of Fortune, it's Domination match mode. And Stormsurge has spawned closest to the B and C cap point, so he's going to go ahead and push up towards the B cap point, but he's not going to enter it, and there's a very specific reason. Now, the Pan-Asia destroyer line has a couple of gimmicks to it, especially once you hit Tier 8. Specifically, the primary gimmick that everyone will be well aware of is, of course, that it has deep water torpedoes. Now, these deep water torpedoes are both a blessing and a curse if you're playing in this destroyer, and you've got a bunch of friendly destroyers who are up in front of you, and you've got an enemy battleship or enemy cruiser starting to bear down. Well, you can actually torpedo those ships from behind your allied destroyers. Why? Simple. Your torpedoes will run right underneath their keels and not impact them. Now, it's a curse because if you're playing against a group of enemy destroyers, well, that means you can't torpedo them, especially if they're hiding in a smoke screen, and you know it's a destroyer and not a cruiser in that smoke screen. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know how much I love torpedoing destroyers in smoke screens. Now, Stormsurge is pushed up here. He's in between the B and C cap point. You might be wondering why he's not pushing into the B cap point or into the C cap point, and that is basically down to the consumables and the loadout that he's chosen here. If you'll notice, he doesn't have a smoke screen. Instead, he's got that little radar icon. This is the second gimmick that the Pan-Asia destroyer line has. You can outfit them with radar. However, it's important to note that radar is very short duration radar, and it has kind of a very limited range. Very similar to the Black, that premium Tier 9 that you earn from completing a bunch of ranked battles. So the radar range on this ship is only 7.5 kilometers. It's not particularly good, but when you're talking about fighting destroyers, that's reasonable. And when you're talking about the detection range on this ship of 5.7 kilometers, that 7.5 isn't bad. It's almost 2 kilometers of extra detection. But the duration is only 14 seconds. Unless you have a fully spec'd radar captain with the modules and everything, then it's 27 seconds. Now, enemy team in the process of capping the B cap point. Stormsurge turns his ship around. He gets a little too close there. He doesn't quite get shots out soon enough to reset the cap, but he does hit the Shimakaze with some guns there, manages to set him on fire. Of course, the Shimas put that out immediately. Does get his deep water torpedoes away at the Atago there. Now, that Atago, though, you'll notice was sailing in a nice straight line. Gets hit by that first set, and is he going to get hit by the second sets? Yes, he is. Stormsurge securing his first kill in the game. First blood for the battle goes to him. Enemy team, though, they've managed to capture the B cap point. However, that's perfectly okay, because at the very least, at the moment, Stormsurge's team has the points lead. But they do have to be careful. There are at least 2 enemy destroyers lurking around the B cap point there. We know the Shimakaze's back in there for sure, but there is at least 1 other destroyer, and we're going to see him in a second. Now, going back to the smokescreen versus radar here, since you don't have a smokescreen, you have to play more cautiously here. You have to use these islands for cover, because if you get caught out in the open without a smokescreen, especially if the enemy team's got a bunch of cruisers coming towards you, you're going to have a significant problem, and you're going to have a bad time. Now, one thing I do notice here is that Stormsurge doesn't utilize his radar here. There's a smoke screen up there, but he's not using that radar. He's got an enemy Fletcher who's come out of that smoke screen, and he's going to go ahead and start opening up with him. Now, you can see here, both of these ships are basically equally matched as far as their guns. Rate of fire, guns, health. Again, Pan-Asia Chungmu is effectively just Fletcher-class destroyer. But you can see here, this Fletcher's trying to turn hard and away. Can Stormsurge finish him off? Come on. Almost there. Yes, he does. 2 kills all good for him. Now there's that Shimakaze. Again, this is where having standard torpedoes would have really been nice. You could have got some torpedoes out at this Shimakaze and caused some serious concern for him. But not having them means you have to rely solely on your guns to finish off enemy destroyers, which is not necessarily a bad thing in the Chungmu because, again, it's basically a Fletcher, so the guns are not bad at dealing with enemy destroyers, especially sub 7 kilometers. Enemy Shimakaze manages to beach himself trying to get away from Stormsurge, and that's going to result in the end of him. But of course, look at the situation here, because Stormsurge doesn't have a smokescreen. He was caught out in the open. Stormsurge got insanely lucky that none of the enemy team's cruisers or battleships were in a position to shoot at him on top of that. This would have actually been a perfect example of when to use the radar and why the radar is so situational on these ships. Because you can't just rush up, force an enemy destroyer to smoke, and then pop that radar. Not like the Z-52 where you've got that hydroacoustic. No, you have to use it sparingly, because if you don't, well, you run into this significant problem of being caught out in the open against enemy ships who are just going to royally wreck you. Speaking of getting caught out in the open against enemy ships, ooh, this Amagi coming around the corner there gets his secondaries away, does impact Stormsurge, but look at that, Stormsurge just puts out torpedoes and finishes him off. So that Amagi has had an unfortunate end of battle situation for him. Probably not paying the most attention there, because you'll notice he didn't get his guns pointed at him, at the very least in that kind of situation. One hit from any of your 60-inch guns, even an open penetration, would finish off Stormsurge. The enemy team now has the A cap point, they have the B cap point, they've only got one destroyer left, and at this point that means good news for Stormsurge's team, because they have the destroyer advantage. They've got 4 of their destroyers still to the enemy team's 1. Now, who's going to get the kill on that Alabama? Well, Stormsurge gets it again, but now he's got to deal with the Shimakaze's torpedoes coming in here. Oh boy. Standard torpedoes here. This could be a problem. He's backing up. He's getting the ship turned. Can he do it? Ooh, this is going to be close. Yes! Wow, hitboxes Wargaming. Look at that. Manages to avoid eating that torpedo, but the friendly ship behind him does eat a couple of torpedoes, so the Shimakaze might be under the impression that he hit something, somebody, possibly the destroyer. Not quite sure there. Stormsurge using, again, the islands for cover here. This is quintessential American destroyer tactics, and without that smokescreen, you absolutely need to know how to play this ship this way. Which is good news if you've played the American Destroyer line, or, you know, arguably if you've played any of the Pan-Asia line up to a certain point, though the Pan-Asia line, in my opinion, does have better torpedoes. Stormsurge's team does finally manage to capture a base. At this point, though, the enemy team down to just 5 ships. Stormsurge's team is up on points, but because the enemy team had those 2 cap points for so long, well, they're actually not that far behind on points. They're only 150 points behind. Stormsurge is going to push up into the B cap point. He's going to challenge it, so they're not going to gain any more points, and he's got to be careful here. He doesn't want to get caught out in the open and shot at, so he gets briefly detected there. He moves away just a little bit, again going into the detection range of this ship. That extra 0.1 kilometer might not seem like a lot, but boy, having that extra 1/10 of a kilometer really does save your bacon from time to time when playing in a ship like this, especially if you've got no health left. I mean, effectively, Stormsurge is in a position where if a seagull shat on his deck, it would probably kill him. He's got a friendly destroyer who's hiding in a smokescreen up there, who's engaging that battleship, and unfortunately for him, he's so close to that battleship that he's basically proximity detected. So he's backed off there, and you'll notice that battleship has dropped off as well. Stormsurge is going to secure the B cap point. That's going to be his only solo cap in this game. Contemplates getting torpedoes out there, but you'll notice that his ship was headed behind an island, and of course it doesn't matter anyway. He's dead now. Now, there are just 2 enemy ships left, and at this point, Stormsurge is going to get a little gutsy here. He's going to push up to the A cap point, knowing that there is an enemy battleship here in the A cap point. And he has to be careful. He's got to time this really well here if he wants to get torpedoes off. They do lose one of their destroyers. If Stormsurge gets caught out in the open, he could also meet his end. He's going to go ahead, try to get shots off there. Doesn't quite get them there fast enough to reach, but there is the other battleship. So he was still detected there, gets insanely lucky, drops back behind this island. So at the very least, he's got that cover. Now, he's going to sit back behind this island, and he's just going to kind of wait. And he's going to wait specifically for backup. Pay attention to the mini-map here. This is something I see a lot of people will not pay attention to, and it will ultimately cost them their lives. And depending on how good your team is, it could cost you the game. So what he's done here is he's stopped and he's waited for his teammates to come back around that island and provide him some supporting fire, because he knows he himself cannot deal with this ship if this guy's looking for him. More importantly, he doesn't have a lot of health, and honestly, a couple of secondary hits would finish him off. So he's going to sit back here. He's spotted. He turns on his anti-aircraft to deal with this catapult fighter, and you know what? I would do the same thing in the situation. The AA is actually pretty decent, but you can see here this cruiser, very low health. Can Stormsurge finish him off? Come on. Opens up with guns. Get him. Yes, it does. Finish him off, and that's the end of the game there. 95,000 damage done in that game. Just shy of 100,000 there. Devastating strike. Kraken Unleashed and First Blood. Overall, a very, very good game for Stormsurge, and a reasonable game to show you what those deep water torpedoes can do, and how effective this destroyer is at dealing with other destroyers without the use of torpedoes. And the answer, obviously, is it does pretty well. Top of the team for XP earned at well over 2,000 base XP. Congratulations to Stormsurge, and not only that, surviving the end of the battle with next to no health left. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. If you liked the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me in the channel, and I encourage you to do so, you can become my supporter on Patreon. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see featured on my channel, you can send it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play various games live, albeit after the holiday season, more regularly, you can do so by following me on Twitch. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Bry, signing off.